praises be to Allah. Brothers and sisters, please forgive that little snafu in technology. Please forgive us. I'm going to repeat my question again, but I just want to reintroduce to let you know that we have Brother Dr. Akili Muhammad in the house, and our topic for this evening is Dear Black Man, and we're going to be talking about stress and depression among Black men. I had asked Brother Akili if he would be so kind as to share with us what it is exactly that Black men do to overcome stress and depression. What exactly do they say? What do they think? Talk to us about that, Brother Akili.
Yeah, so I was going through the process of talking about depression and anxiety, right? So if somebody were to offer us $5 million right now and both of us look sad, people would be like, what's wrong with them? Just like if we could go back when you found out your father was in his condition on his way out, or somebody called me right now and told me my mother is dead, and we smiling and laughing. We all know that that's a little different than what we would expect. So the point I'm getting to is that depression and anxiety are normal aspects of life. When you have good news, you expect to be excited, smiling, enjoying yourself. You get bad news, you should go down in a negative way for a certain amount of time. The problem becomes when we don't do what it takes to bring you back to your baseline, bring you back to what you consider normal. And if we examine the Black man in America, we haven't had any activity to bring us back to baseline since we got off the ships on the shores of this country. Not through slavery, not through Jim Crow, not through the black codes, not through the civil rights era, not through what we're doing now, do we do anything to solve these problems. We are just getting to a place, probably I would say within the last 5 years, I wouldn't push it past 7, where Black men are now on social media talking about getting therapy, talking about getting counseling. So we're just starting to peel that reality so that we could poke our head out and start looking for solutions. At the end of the day, what I know I watched and what I have seen and what I still see and working with when I'm in our communities is that we're still masking depression and anxiety with the tough guy. So most of these gangbangers are depressed. Most of these homeless people, of course, are depressed. Most of these brothers that are working hard, if you just sit down and talk with them long enough and they're cheating or they're drinking or they're doing some type of something to take their mind away to a so-called peaceful place, but it's not constructive, it's destructive because when you're drunk, you're going to do some other type of activity that's going to wind up in trouble. Or if you're smoking weed or you're using some other type of pills or something else to try to take your mind off of the pain, you're winding up doing self-destructive activity against your marriage, against your significant other, against your children, against our community. So we really are looking, if we just look at the Black man, look at some of these videos we're looking at that they're posting about us on all social media platforms, shootouts, fights, all this different stuff that we're seeing, these are activities of people that aren't at a baseline, don't know how to talk their way out of problems or talk to each other like we even matter. You know what I mean? Things get blown out of proportion so quickly because of a misunderstood word or a misunderstood situation or how you looking at me. These are depressed activities. These are activities of a person that feel so badly about themselves that all they're doing is projecting how bad they feel about themselves on people that look like them. Most Black men aren't blasting somebody that don't look like them. You know what I mean? Out here in California, of course, we have the black and brown problem that swells and is swelling now. But in general, Black man is going to kill another Black man because you can't stand what you see in the mirror. And you can't stand everything that looks like a reflection of you. So at the end of the day, I use my own experience. Some of the most difficult things that have ever happened in my life, I realized that we don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know how to listen to each other. I mean, I literally have been in some situations where having a conversation with somebody that started out talking about what was going on with me, but not long after that goes back to you talking about yourself. You know what I mean? So we don't know how to just sit and listen to somebody and let them get something out and let them get to a place of coming to some conclusions about yourself, because that's really what sitting down and talking to somebody about your problem is. Ain't nobody outside of you gonna come up with the answer. If we go to Allah, we trust a God, we start talking, and the more we talk, the more clarity we get for ourselves, and be like, man, damn, that's what I need to do. When I went through the loss of our daughter, the most powerful interaction that happened with me was my good friend, Brother Victor in Houston, Brother Victor X. He came over to the house where we were and he grabbed me and gave me a hug. And he said, man, I don't have any idea what to say. I just needed to come see you. He grabbed me, he held me, and we just embraced each other. I mean, it had to be for a couple of minutes. And he really didn't say anything else. And he sat down and just sat with me for a few hours. That was more meaningful than every other interaction, and no matter what somebody had to say, because I don't know anybody. I don't have any friends that lost their daughters. You know what I'm saying? So nobody understood what I was going through. So whatever you were about to open your mouth and say, it probably was worthless, if I'm honest, right? Especially the people that say, man, I understand what you're going through. Nigga, why in the hell would you say that to me? Those type of things piss me off. And then people that say, man, I overstand. Like, nigga, do you realize how demeaning that is to say to somebody when you really don't know what I'm going through? So that brother that just held me and just sat there with me for hours and didn't say nothing, wiping away his tears, that was the most meaningful interaction I had in that whole process. And that's what I mean by, we have to start anew, because last week's program, we kind of stayed in the physical, but most of us as Black men have never even had a conception of how to bring yourself out of depression, how to bring yourself out of anxiety, how to bring yourself to a place where you can look in the mirror and say, he's all right with me.
But how can they possibly even fathom that train of thought, Brother Akili, if they won't even admit to themselves that I am stressed? Stress is one thing, depression is another. But a lot of men may not even want to admit even to themselves that they're stressed out.
But that's why a show like this is
I'm all right.
But that's why a show
know?
That's why a show like this is so important, because they're gonna have to see me go through it. After I lost my daughter, the first show that I did after I lost her, I couldn't even finish the show. I was crying too much. But I wasn't worried about what anybody was gonna think about me. I know who the strongest man is that I know on the planet Earth. That's Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I'll call him the most feminine man I know. Ain't nothing weak about his feminine side. We are weak because we won't show our feminine side.
Whoa.
That's the most weak person that can't be yourself. That's what I'm learning within myself. I grew up in Southern California in the gang activity, which is what I chose to go be a part of. And so I know what it's like to put myself into a shell, not to let my normal side come out. Hell, I thought that normal side would have got murdered or abused or used. So I made myself a certain way to exist. And now I'm just learning at 57 years young how to undo that. So that's the first part, is that brothers got to hear somebody tell the truth. You sitting around by yourself, can't express yourself, don't want to express yourself because you think you'll be a punk. You'll think you'll be considered soft. You'll think you'll be considered to be weak. The brother that's most open and most able to be himself is the one that's the most strong. And so we got to change the paradigm in the Black community. No matter what somebody thinks about me, I'm going to tell the truth. And that's just the end of it. I ain't got nothing to prove to nobody except God. But I will continue to say, Minister Farrakhan has on multiple occasions shed tears as he is expressing himself in public. The one that we probably most are remembrant of would be 1995 Savior's Day, when he was talking about how these people, the ones that are really in power, the most, the rich of the world that control politics and control whole governments and whole situations that are happening, how they're using our young people in these wars. And he cried in that lecture talking about that subject because he loves us so much that it broke him down and caused him to shed tears as he's thinking about, similar to where we are now, what's going to happen as we go into war with some of our young people. So at the end of the day, brothers, I'm talking to brothers today, man, we gotta find a place that you feel comfortable, and you have to be able to start expressing yourself to somebody. And if you say that you don't have anybody to talk to, that's because you're not ready and you're not able to be that, because you may have to be it for somebody before you're able to open yourself up. So it's going to be a very valorous, courageous, and brave new paradigm that black men are going to have to step into. Be your damn self. Stop faking in front like you're good all the time, because that's a damn lie.
Yes, sir. You know, Brother Akili, they research says, and please forgive me for using what they call it. I used to get in trouble doing this in college all the time. Anthropomorphism, stating
Mhm.
that a noun can actually do something like the book says. Books don't speak. I laugh at that, so that's my own little piece of humor. But they say that the prevalence rates are they're actually conflicting, because they will say that there's a small number of black men that are depressed, that and they know that they're under a lot of stress due to racism, but they won't say what those numbers are. I believe that the data is conflicting due to systemic data reporting and underreporting, because truthfully speaking, there there's nobody that black men can actually go to, like a psychologist or a therapist or even a psychiatrist if necessary, and that's primarily because they don't have anybody that looks like them that they think that they could trust. The majority of the therapists are white men, white women, and there are some black women. And it took a lot for me. I had one patient that I came to realize after studying him that there was something going on with him, and it was something that I couldn't do. I had to look for 2 months, Brother Akili, to find a black psychologist for him to go to. And I had to go through like 6 or 7 different backdoor avenues to even get him to get the service from him that his insurance would pay for. And I think that's ridiculous. But I understand why we don't have any psychologists, because a lot of, let me put it this way, there were more in the 70s, 80s, and 90s than there are today. And the ones that I knew, they actually passed away from health conditions like cancer or heart disease. And we're going to talk about that also in a minute. And you know, in the world of scientific research and reporting, if they believe the way this system is set up, if the numbers don't reflect what their hypothesis or their theory is, then the problem cannot exist. I don't know how they can fix their lips and say that there's not a lot of black men that are stressed out or depressed when you're looking at the trauma and the violence and the things that they have to go through just to get up in the morning and put their feet on the floor. They have no motivation really to actually get up and leave the quietness of their homes, I don't think, most of them, primarily because they know what they're going to be up against when they go out. A lot of a lot of black men that will turn to God, and they try to go talk to a pastor or a deacon or someone that they look up to, will probably tell them to just keep praying. God will answer your prayer. And I'm not saying that God won't, because he can do all things. But in my most humble opinion, I think that that's not a real solution. And I don't mean any disrespect to God about it or anything like that. But what else can they do besides pray? It's like, if I don't have any food and I have no money and I'm hungry, I can sit in my living room and stare up at the ceiling fan and just pray for some food. But if I don't get up off that couch and go out there and do something and make some money to get some food, then I'm just going to be sitting up there thinking about going, wondering what those ceiling fan blades would taste like if I marinated them in something. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm putting humor in it, but that's the reality of it. They can pray, but you have to get up and do something a little bit proactive. But what options do our brothers have when they're talking about, when they admit to themselves that they stress, or if they don't, they may be depressed and not even realize it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said a lot. I'm going to try to hit them all quickly. First of all, there is absolutely zero scientific studies done in this country that can honestly give the truth about black people, because the studies are never done right when black people are the subject matter. Until we start doing our own studies, we're never going to have accurate statistics. So that's the first thing. Second thing, the first step of becoming depressed is a lack of faith in God. A person that has faith in God can't be depressed for long. If a bad situation happens, you're going to bounce back. But the problem is that when a black man goes to a church and sees a white Jesus, how in the hell can he believe in that? We can't believe in nothing else white. Everything else white has destroyed us, but you're going to tell me to come believe in a white Jesus. Got to be depressed. If I go to a church and you talk about some ethereal God that ain't real, how in the hell can I believe in something that I don't have any tie to? So the first problem is that we don't know who God is. God will bring you out of anything. So if you don't believe in God, when you pray, what the hell are you expecting? Nothing. Right? So that's the first thing, is we have to put the right mind frame and the right reality in God. And so, you know, my suggestion with any brother that's listening to this who's not in the Nation of Islam, you should go listen to the Minister Louis Farrakhan talk about God and who is God. I'm not saying you got to come join the Nation of Islam. You don't have to become a Muslim if that's not what you want, but listen to who is God and other lectures that he has about God, and then go back to your church and start asking some questions, and then pray the way the minister is giving you the idea to pray, and watch and see if he don't bring some people in your life. Because as soon as you start seeking God, the reality of the Quran starts coming true. If you take one step toward God, he'll take two towards you. And believe me, in the time that we're in right now, God's peak is up, as ours should be. But there's scientific research that proves that when a person prays, the activity of their brain, and the way the brain lights up with activity, light, and movement, is so much greater than a person who's watching television or sleeping or doing other things. So that's your connection to God, is when you pray to him sincerely, you light up, and that's how you get his attention. I'm saying that in a way that's scientifically, I'm not saying that's the only way to get God's attention. So that, to me, is where I would start, because every problem psychologically, mentally, or spiritually has to start with God. Yes, there is no other way. A person who says, I don't believe in God, you know, a lot of times that's untrue, because you're just talking out of frustration. But if somebody really does come to a place where they don't believe there is a God, you're disconnected from the reality of everything that keeps you alive. So those will be my initial answers, my sister. And then lastly, I would say, you know, as black men, um, the only thing that you can give is what you know you have to give. And the reality of black men in America is that the younger generation doesn't have the same pose of racism that we had. When I was coming up in California, which was supposed to be such a liberal place, I got called nigga regularly. We got mistreated by teachers and administrators at schools. Me and my brothers are regularly the black and other black children. When we were just trying to do normal activities around the city of Riverside, where I grew up, we would get harassed by the police on a regular basis. So we literally could see racism everywhere. Today, I think the only time these young people consider racism is with white police officers. And sometimes, because so many black police officers have taken on the mind of their enemy, they're seeing it with them too. So they still a blur, but they know for sure what's happening when a white police officer runs up in a community or pulls them over or winds up interacting with them at some facility where they're hanging out or something to that nature. But when we have such a long standing reality of not dealing with what's going on in between our ears, our young men do not even conceive that there's an answer to go sit down and talk with somebody. My personal experience with white women and white men therapists, because in my past marriage, my ex-wife didn't want to continue going forward until we got counseling. And we wound up in a room with a white woman in two different occasions, and they were like, "Oh, you're too angry. I don't think I can handle you." That's what these white women told me. And so, what kind of statistics can these people be talking about? Is that black people aren't going to therapy, or black people aren't this and that? They don't even know because we don't trust them enough. We don't think you can handle what we got going on.
They can't.
And they can. That's true. But what
They
I do know is the black men do a lot of talking in barbershops. Black men do a lot of talking at work over sports. Black men do a lot of talking when they're sitting at these little places where you call a lounge or the club or the hangout spot or whatever the case may be. Those are the areas that proves we have the environment, but we just won't take the step to talk about something that's meaningful. You talking about who's the best between LeBron and Jordan. That ain't never going to put nothing in your pocket. Ain't going to make you better. Ain't going to make you a better father. Ain't going to do nothing for you. And so we have to start turning some of these black gatherings of men into places where we can start introducing conversation, because that's where it's going to start. It's not going to start anywhere else. There's no women that's going to make no man open up and start talking. Ain't no white people got nothing that's going to make us come and try to feel comfortable. It's going to be amongst black men. And that's why, to me, a program like this is so important, because every black man that's listening to this that has enough courage, valor, and bravery to do something like this, you need to be the one to start the conversation in the barbershop, in the after work little hangout that y'all do on the corner, or by the liquor store, or by the homie's house after you all got your stuff. Start bringing up the conversations that black men don't want to have. Don't press it too hard. Just start bringing it up. They're going to go right back to it, but keep doing it. Little by little by little, we'll start to understand that, man, I feel so good when I talk about the things that are bothering me, because I ain't got nowhere else to talk about it. And so we're going to do it. It's going to be black men that are going to do it, but we got to be able to be brave enough to be the one that maybe get labeled. Man, you always starting these old punk ass conversations. I mean, you always starting these soft ass conversations. Okay, keep calling me that. But I'm free, bro. You don't see me sitting around here drinking and smoking every week for Happy Day, and nigga ain't never happy. Keep on doing what you're doing. One day you're going to understand this is the right place to come, open your mouth, and get some true happiness when you get all that crap up off your mind.
Yes, sir. We're going to go back on that vein in just a second, but I wanted to ask you about this because you're a physician. I wanted to talk about the correlation between depression and the imbalances of neurotransmitters that specifically serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, because I know that when those levels are low, then neurotransmitters just fire and it contributes to, not causes, depression. So, do you believe, and I'm saying yes, because you're actually talking to someone who was years ago diagnosed with being clinically depressed, and they wanted to give me medicine for it. I refused. You know why? Because at that moment I said, what kind of a believer in God would I be if I took medication for something that I know that he can help heal me from? I had to search inside myself to realize that sometimes it's not what you do or what you're not doing, it's who you do.
That's right.
So I had to get rid of the source of my depression, that was a who. And once I took that courageous step forward, I haven't looked back, and I haven't been depressed either. But there was a process that I myself, as a Black woman, had to go through to repair the damage. And I found the relief in nutrition, and it actually restored a lot of the neurotransmitter chemical imbalances that existed because of the depression. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about that, because that was just me experimenting on myself based on what it is that I had learned in school. And I found that there's a lot of validity, but I am the research subject myself.
Yeah.
So can you contribute to this conversation about what it is that we eat, Black men eat and drink and use and do that as actually contributing to the stress factors that they are having in their lives, especially those that are related to depression?
That's a big one right there. The first thing I'll say is that I think it's excellent. An excellent example what you just gave is that every person has to individually research themselves. You have to be astute enough to know how your body responds to meat versus a vegetarian meal versus a highly processed meal versus fruit. Because what we have to come to the conclusion is that Allah made no mistakes. He makes no mistakes. So every single one of you is an absolute unique being that there will never be anything ever just alike. There are no two snowflakes, two blades of grass, two kernels of sand that are exactly the same, nor are there two humans. Yet sometimes we can't tell the difference between twins, but spend some time with them for a while. And then you'll get to a point where you're like, man, they don't even look alike. So the reality is that if that is true, and it is, then everything to sustain you has been put on the planet Earth. And the first thing that you have to come to the conclusion of is the three things that Sister Anissa just mentioned: serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine are the feel-good hormones of the brain and the GI system that send it so that the body can be in that euphoric state. You don't need to get high with weed. You don't need to get a buzz with drinking. If you truly understand how to take what Allah has put in this creation for us. Let me give you an example. If anybody is feeling down, do an experiment on yourself. Find a nice park where maybe there's some water, trees, nice greenery, and go sit out there for a while and watch whatever is wrong with you. When you get ready to get back in your car or walk back wherever you came from, you will literally feel better. Why? Because that's what Allah did. He put everything out in this environment: the food, the water, the air, the sunshine, the breezes that are blowing, the aromatherapy of the plants and the trees and all the different flowers and different things he put around there. All of that is to serve you. But if you don't believe in a real God, you won't believe in no real stuff like that. When you smell food, you're smelling particles of the food. When you go outside and you smell the trees and all that, you're smelling particles of that that's going in your body and energizing you along with the sun. So we have the answers. It's just that most of us aren't tapping into the right source to get those answers, and we don't experiment on ourselves to figure out, man, what is this food doing to me? These crazy Muslims always talking about watch what you eat to live, and all this kind of stuff. Go do an experiment on yourself and see if you don't start to agree with what we're talking about. Because if you're stopping at Popeyes and Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's and all these other killer places, Chick-fil-A, nobody that I know of doesn't talk about how many different chemicals are in Chick-fil-A's food. But at the end of the day, put yourself on a diet. If that's what you eat, put yourself on a diet and eat that all week. And just pay attention to how short your temper is, how short your patience is, how short your attention span is. And then the next week, go to a totally different reality and try to eat some fruit and try to eat some vegetables and try to eat some stuff that makes some sense. And then the week after that, eat a lot of meat, not from fast food restaurants, but eat a lot of meat from a store and have it prepared by somebody if you don't know how to cook or you don't have a wife at home. But then compare yourself in those three different realities. And then we don't have to sit around and guess. Then we don't have to sit around and talk about, man, I don't know what they're talking about. That is a black man's favorite damn statement. Man, I don't know what they're talking about. What research have you done in this area? None. All you do is eat the same way that either your mama or your grandmama showed you, or you just came up following everybody else did. So how could you tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when you ain't never even tried what I'm talking about? So the reality is that the black man got to become new. What we doing and where we are is a broken reality. And until we start trying something different, listening to some of the suggestions that people give us, we'll stay stuck in that rut. But that would be my suggestion to every black man, is that you have to understand what nature represents to you. It is all for your benefit. It says it in the Quran. I can't think of the verse right now, but it basically talks about the mountains and the scenery and all that being for our benefit.
It does. The
Right?
Quran also tells us that Allah changes not the condition of a people until they change their own condition.
Take one step.
Come on, right? So if you want something better, then you have to be proactive, because again, it's not going to pop out of the ceiling fan while you're laying on the couch, binge watching whatever it is that you're binge watching.
And then the other thing, that the last thing I'll say, Sister Nisa, is because the glaring example of racism is not there anymore. Our people in 2025 think that saying that we have an enemy and talking about white people, they think it's absurd. But what we don't know, because we haven't researched, is that fast food is scientific experiment. Jail, incarceration is a scientific experiment. Mm-hmm. Video games, scientific experiment. The reason why this current generation listens to those of us that used to smoke weed back in the Gap talk about the way your weed smells is because it is being altered. Otherwise, it would smell the same. So we're talking about a reality that has been painted, has been presented, and has been done, and then that hand is hidden where you find malts, 40 ounces in malt liquor, only in black communities, where you find Black and Milds and Swisher Sweets and all that kind of stuff. You cannot go into an affluent white community and find a 40 ounce. You cannot go into an affluent white neighborhood and find Swisher Sweets, Black Milds, and all that kind of stuff. You just can't. And so this is another thing that you all have to trust, that we've done enough research. Dr. Wesley's books is talking about the research that has been done before many of us were even born. And now we're looking at the display of those experiments, basically dictating to us what activity we wind up um, becoming active in, because it's been an idea of pushing us into the reality that we are. So the fact that the black man has an inability to express himself, has an inability of finding a place to go express himself, and he keeps doing all these damaging things to himself when he really just needs to sit down and talk to somebody, is all part of a master plan for you not to be able to be of the right mind. As I said last show, we are the ones. The black man is what's going to take the black community out of the horrible situation that we're in. Nobody else. I'm not downing the black woman when I say that. She's going to be an integral part of it. But until black men stand up and take our rightful place in our community, there will be no community that will look like something that we can be proud of. So just think about it and find out where you can start your journey of going in the right direction.
Thank
And
you,
by the
brother.
way, I'll say
Yes.
this. Anytime I feel that my mental health is not good, the first thing that I do is go outside in the sun, around trees, in my backyard where all the trees and plants are. Or I'll go to a park where there's some water and just sit and watch the birds and trees shake with the wind and listen to the sound of the wind going through the trees and look at the clouds go by. I mean, it literally will take stuff, and it's almost as if it just melts up out of your body. Try it. Call me weak if you want to. That's cool, but I'm a stay working on my mental health so it can be right, because I know there's a lot of work that I have to do to help my brothers out here in this world.
Yes, sir. All praises be to Allah. And speaking of you working out your mental health, I want to ask you to talk a little bit more about the actual stress and any depression that you may have experienced upon trying to hold it all together for your lovely wife, Sister Tawana, and yourself and your family upon the death of your daughter. Talk about that and how and what you had to do to overcome all of that to come back to a semblance of normalcy and what your normalcy looked like.
Um, hmm. Well, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna talk about two situations, right? Because I spoke towards the end of last year on the STEM files about losing my career in Houston.
Okay.
And I would say that losing my medical license in Texas and losing my daughter, pretty high up on the list of the most life altering situations, most difficult situation I ever had to deal with in my life. The way that I processed losing my license versus the way I processed losing my daughter is like night and day. Everything that I just finished talking about, when I lost my license, I didn't have those tools in my bag. I was
Okay.
dealing with it the way that I say that everybody else was dealing with it, because I had no tools to handle it in 2012 when I lost everything. If it wasn't for being a member of the Nation of Islam, I probably would have been drunk and high every day. I probably would have been fornicating or practicing adultery, whether I was married or not, with damn near every woman that smiled at me like I was doing prior to that. So it would have been a lot of self-destructive activity in that first situation. The second situation, I started, and this was the process that galvanized what I just explained, because I felt helpless. I felt incapable. I was for sure depressed, but I was, the best way for me to describe it is like the movie Get Out. in that scene where the brother was in the chair and the chair was just falling and he was just like doing like this, and it was just like there was nothing. He was just going into the abyss. That's the way I felt after we lost my daughter. And the first thing that helped was a loss assist at the Church of Scientology. We're probably gonna have a whole show to talk about that reality, but that was something that was a magnanimous change in
Mm-hmm.
everything that was going on. But then it was the change of environment. We, me and my wife went and visited my mom and went and visited our daughter in Chicago, went to visit her mom in North Carolina, went to visit my daughter in Miami. We just kept moving, and it was a blessing at that time because I had some help to do those things, right? It's not like I came into a gang of money, but I had help. And that's what we did is we just tried to figure out how we were going to heal from that. And that's when I started to apply many things that I had read, learned over the years about getting out in the environment, because the environment of nature is what is produced by the God we serve to comfort you and to bring you back to a place about us, to bring you back to a place where you can actually feel like your head came above water. You can take a deep breath. And let me tell you all one of the places that I found it. See, the scripture says, study the ant, you sluggard. Now, there's more to it, so go check it out. But the point is that God is telling us to study nature. And so I was
Yes.
watching a program on lions one day, and a female lion hid her babies in like a brushy area, but there was a male lion came and killed them. And I am not exaggerating at all, brothers and sisters. I pray that you don't think I'm crazy. It don't matter. But they showed the pictures of this lioness's face as she was going to look for her children. And when she found that they were dead, you could literally see the sadness and the depression come over that lion's face. I am not exaggerating at all. And then after she went back and got with her pride, and then they were kind of hanging out, and they were, this is like a progression of days that they're doing all this filming. You could see her countenance come back to normal when she was back amongst her pride. They went back hunting, got something to eat, and all this kind of stuff, the normal activity of life, and nature brought her countenance back. Now, I know I'm comparing an animal to a human, and we have these brains and all this thinking, yeah, but I'm saying that that is a reality in nature of what I just described. And that's what got me over part of the reality of coming out of that place where I was. It was consistent being out in the sun and being outside. If I was going to be a day where I wasn't working, didn't have any clients, and just kind of chilling, I wouldn't stay inside all day. I'd go outside and just sit in the sun, sit somewhere by some water, or go for a walk. And those things really helped me. It's amazing. And it sounds very difficult to understand to some people, but unless you try it, don't knock it. See what it will do for you, and then maybe you'll connect with what I'm talking about, because it is impossible to explain, but it also is impossible to measure and compare, because there's nothing that I know of that's better other than sitting down and talking to somebody and being vulnerable about what's really going on deep down inside of you. That nature reality and that talking to another person, to me, are the most effective things to bring a person back to a normalcy in their mental health.
All praises be to Allah. I know that they say there's an old saying, an old adage, different strokes for different folks. The nature part, brothers and sisters, is so much out there, different places where you can go. Some people like water. Some people like botanical gardens.
That's right.
Some people like to go and visit exhibits where they have a butterfly exhibit
That's
or
right.
a frog exhibit. Just do something different
That's facts.
for yourself. Sometimes people, me myself, it's like that issue about grounding. I love the way really thick plush grass feel when I'm walking on it barefoot?
Yes.
I have no idea why. I just and if we all sit down and go somewhere and it just brings this overwhelming sense of peace.
Yes.
The why isn't important.
That's facts.
It really isn't important. I love the beach. I like the smell of the ocean water. I like the sound of the waves hitting the shoreline. I like the way that the grass feels under my feet. I even like how the sand feels under my feet. And I'm discovering that depending upon my mood or what may be troubling me, depends on where I go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And and it's a big relief for me because I know that when I was going through my depressive state, I used to what they call nowadays, it's like emotional eating. You need a quick fix of something to soothe that pain. And unfortunately, women, especially Black women, we go to junk food and stuff that
That's
ruins
facts.
our health.
Yes.
You know, I don't sure if men do it as much as we do, but I know that we do that.
Oh yeah, we do it. We do it just as much.
We do it what? Just what?
We do it just as much. It is coined on the Black woman, but it's happening on both sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that
That's
grounding that you talk about is real, my sister. I don't like to feel in the grass under my feet. I don't like to feel in the sand under my feet. But I take my feet, my shoes off, and my socks in my backyard after my workouts almost every day. And I put my feet on the ground. I do a little Reiki therapy, little thing that I do. But I mean, brothers and sisters, you have to try it for yourselves because it is already a studied fact that when people go on vacation and they go to countries where they're going to spend time on the beach, the sound of the ocean, the walking around barefooted, the being in the sun and being around nature is the majority of the reason that people feel relaxed, that people feel refreshed. It's a studied reality. So it's not well, to some degree, it is being in a different place, but it's not the hotel. It's not the things that you do inside while you're there. It's the time that you spend outside, which for most people, when they're on vacation, they spend more time outside than they do probably in magnitude of months in the rest of the year. So nature is a huge thing. And the things that you talked about, my sister, it's scientific. Grounding is scientific. Hugging a tree is scientific.
I went
The
to
energy that the earth gives human beings
that right
is
there.
magnificent.
I went to Tampa. I think it was last year. Being in the Gulf of Mexico, that water is so different than the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, it is.
It's greener, it smells differently. And it's like when I just went and stood in the water, it really had this healing effect on me. As a
Yes.
matter of fact, I was recovering from a fractured toe at the time. And I was still struggling with it, but a little bit. But when I came out that ocean, I'm telling you, no,
Yeah.
seriously,
No, I understand, my sister. Yes.
my toe did not hurt,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a problem putting my heels back on again or wearing shoes. It was just the grounding aspect of it and whatever is in the water in the Gulf
I had an
that
experience.
made the biggest difference, because we may think that all water is the same, but it's not.
No, it's not. You know, that I had an experience. My wife ate something when we were in Mexico one time, and she broke out in her face, all over her upper body, everything. I
Mhm.
said, "Let's go out to the ocean," and just took some of that sand in the bottom of the, you know, she doesn't
Mhm.
know how to swim, so we didn't go too far. But I would just reach down there, get some of that sand, and just rub it on all the areas, and that mud or that sand from the bottom of the ocean and that ocean water,
Mhm.
it made it cool. It didn't go away immediately, but it definitely made it feel a lot better, and it started to go in the right direction. But there's so much healing in the earth. There's so much healing in the reality of what God put around us. That's the most important thing I can tell every brother that's coming to this program looking for some answers is, bro, start doing new things. I'm not talking about spending money and all that kind of stuff. I'm just start doing some new things. Try something different and see what it does for you. And if you try something and it gives you some benefit, you'll continue trying more things and you won't stop.
Yeah.
I wasn't comfortable taking my shoes off and putting my feet on stuff and talking about them grounding. And the first time I hugged a tree was in my own backyard. I felt embarrassed looking around to see who was looking at me. Ain't nobody in my backyard. So I mean, I'm saying that I'm making it funny, but brothers, I mean, we do those type of things, man. I mean, I know I'm not the only one. Me as
Is that
black
an
men in general,
ego?
we do that.
Is that
It's
an
always
ego
this embarrassment.
comes
Like, is
from?
somebody gonna see me doing something different? Yeah, somebody gonna see you doing something different. And if it benefits you, that's the way you change him too, or them. But that's part of the anxiety. And I know there are many brothers that will listen to this and they'll feel me immediately. We have our own little anxiety and embarrassment that we go through, and it ain't in nobody else's head but yours.
Can
That's
you
where we
say
can
that
start.
again one more time, sir?
All in our own head. Yep.
Yes. You know what? This has been a very enlightening discussion today. And I'm so very glad that we had it, Brother Akili. I really, really am. Because, again, my mom had 7 brothers. My dad had 7 brothers.
Hmm.
So that's 14 uncles,
Yep.
you know? And to just watch how they communicated and how tight they were through thick and thin, then it's like the little girl in me wants to see that back.
Yes.
The little girl in me wants to see that type of love displayed, that type of closeness, that type of tightness. Because when I was growing up, yeah, you had little skirmishes between families, between people, but next hour or whatever,
That's
it's
right.
like it never happened.
That's right.
But now we're all conditioned to hold on to these grudges and things that is rooted in something silly,
Yes.
really. And I mean, and I'm gonna share this, and then we're gonna try to gently close out because this is like an ongoing discussion. When I worked at a school here in LA, I was in the department of the dean's office where we had to deal with disciplinary problems. And these 2 young ladies came in there and they had been fighting. And I'm talking about some big, burly security guards had to keep them away from one another. I asked everybody to leave the office and I talked to those girls and I told them, I'm going to ask everybody to leave and y'all going to sit down in here and we're going to find out why y'all so mad at each other, right? And I
That's
said,
right.
yeah, but they got into a fight because of a celebrity that they didn't know. And I said, y'all did what? She said, what, blah, 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 blah. I suspended both of them for stupidity. And I told their mothers that. And I gave them an assignment and told them, you are not going to be able to come back to school until you complete this assignment. But right now, you suspended for at least 4 days because you need to go home and think about it. You're about to kill each other over somebody that don't even know you exist. Now, does that make any sense whatsoever? So it's kind of like, if that's going on in the mind of females, I
Yes.
can't even fathom what's going on in the mind of a male. If that type of energy is turned inward to the point where they're having some issues and they really truly believe that, and if you said it earlier, that their ego won't even allow them to admit to themselves that they have an issue, that there is stress going on in my life, let alone sitting up here talking about going outside and talking about somebody, because I don't want nobody to think I'm weak. Black men, I want you to know you are not weak. You're far from it. But your community needs you, your wives, your daughters, your nieces, your children, your grandchildren. We need you. Your community needs you. So man up and step up to the plate, because God is not through with you yet, and you got work to do to help us build a new reality for ourselves. Dr. Akili, thank you so much.
Can I make a closing remark?
Of course.
For all the brothers that hear this, if Sister Anissa gives me the permission, I'm going to try to break this up and put it in little clips on Instagram as well, right? Because this is what I think all of our young men have to hear from those of us that have been on the planet for a few more years. And that is, the biggest cause of anxiety is to spend your every day, every moment trying to fit in. That was the biggest cause of my anxiety in my young years. And I know what I'm seeing when I'm looking at other young men. The way they dress, the clothes you wear, and the pressure to do that is greater these days than I even think it was when we were coming up. But that's it. To think that you are not good enough. Somebody's shoes are better than you. Somebody's clothes are better than you. They got the nicer looking girl or whatever the case may be. That's a big part of anxiety that lasted in my life well into my 20s, probably, or maybe even into my 30s. And so the responsibility of our young men still having that type of pressure still comes back to us as Black men, because we're not involved enough with these young men to give them a hug and tell them they're okay. You are all right the way you are, young man. And it's time for us to do that, because that's what's going to relieve a lot of the anxiety of causing some of our young men to pick up a stick to fit in, to put a body on his count because he's trying to fit in, or to sell some drugs because he's trying to get fit in, not get talked about, not have any money, though he ain't got no gear to hang out with the dudes that got the gear. It's all a facade. It's not going to mean anything later in life if you make it to later in life. Because the biggest breath of fresh air and freedom for me are the times I remember in my life where I said, I'm not doing that to fit in anymore. I'm done with that. And it takes time for you to have confidence in making those type of statements and walking that walk. But believe me, it's worth it. And so we got to be able to go and hug our young men and let them know that they're okay. That you can be uniquely different just like you look. You can be uniquely different just like your voice pattern is. You can be uniquely different like your handprint, your eye print, and every other part of your body. That's the way God made you. And that's why we know this society is not made from God, because this society doesn't promote uniqueness like the God that made you. Nobody looks, sounds like you. God made you that way for you to stick out in your own way with your own gifts and talents. And it's time for us as Black men to start hugging these young men and letting them know you're uniquely beautiful just the way you are, young Black man. And maybe we'll change some things. Inshallah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Brother Akili.
Thank you, my sister. I appreciate being on the show.
I will get in touch with the network executives to find out how you're going to be able to go on IG or whatever and do little snippets and things like that, because I'm not quite sure how that protocol would work, but I'm definitely going to find out, because I think it's worth it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll see y'all next week, where we're going to go into part 3 of Dear Black Man, me and Brother Akili. I have no idea, but it's going to come to me, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You're awesome, Brother Akili. Thank you so much. May Allah bless you. And give Sister Tawana my love, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good night, everybody.